Welcome to Disability News and Views, a production of the City of Boston's Disabilities Commission. This November, the City of Boston Planning Department needs feedback from Boston's disability community. They want to know what you think about how to improve developments that are reviewed by the City of Boston. The Article 80 Modernization Project is going to study and recommend improvements for community engagement. Later in the show, Kristiana Lachiusa, who is the Deputy Director of Community Engagement for the city's planning department, will talk with Commissioner McCosh about that project. And during their conversation, you can learn how Boston residents with disabilities can get involved with the public comment period. But first, we have a community conversation segment. Today, our co-host Ken Meyer will talk with Valerie Fletcher, a South End resident who has made communities around the world more accessible and inclusive for people with disabilities. Please take it away, Ken.
Valerie, first of all, it's nice to talk to you. I haven't talked with you in many years.
Ken, I'm trying to remember how long, but it's been a very long time. Yes, indeed. But it's nice to see you again today.
It's nice to see you, and you have not aged a bit.
Oh, I don't know about that, but
give us a little background about you and how you got involved with disabilities.
Sure. I have always been involved in disabilities. It has been a passion of my life looking at equity. My own family, my parents and my siblings have extensive experience with disability. I only have the disabilities of someone who is aging and acquiring those conditions that are so typical for all of us over time. Public mental health has been a priority for me. I had a long arc of my career in that, but I've also been a designer. And I love design. Design makes my blood run faster, but I could never persist in a career in design without it having an element of social justice and equity. And I have been one lucky duck for 26 years to have landed with an organization originally called Adaptive Environments that was all about the role of design and social equity. It was like a dream with an overarching starting priority on issues of disability. And that's expanded over time to include older people, and now really looking at all the intersection of race and culture and ability and gender issues, all of that under a heading that we call inclusive design. We used to call it universal design. We now find inclusive design is more meaningful.
Okay, tell us about IHCD.
Thank you. We were founded in 1978, so we've been around a long time, 46 years. And we actually started up the year that Section 504 was first implemented. And that was a big moment. You know, it was a moment when, with a lot of anticipation and a great deal of frustrated waiting, suddenly we had federal legislation that required a level of accessibility for anybody who got federal money. And there was a big crowd. So that was a big deal. And we've always been about a participatory process of bringing people along for an appreciation that design can be transformative. It is a tool for everyone to play. So that's always been about what we do. We have always been about accessibility as standards and codes and compliance. But beyond that, we've been pioneers in the world that we originally called universal design and we now call inclusive design. We've run the New England ADA Center, for example, since 1996. So we're one of 10 federally funded centers to support voluntary compliance with the ADA.
Tell us about, 26 years going all over the world.
Yes. I never get bored, Ken, never. But this is my hometown, and it's still a place I figure that this is where my life it began here, it will end here. As much as I like to experience the world, and as much as I value my relationships across the world, this is a place I care about deeply. It is, it's where it's where my heart belongs. And that has always been true wherever I've lived in the world and wherever I've lived in the United States, but travel the world. I could never be happier than coming back to Boston.
Right, but tell us about some of the places you've been and some of the things that I mean, 26.
I've been very lucky. My old friend Alan Crocker, who used to be Dr. Alan Crocker, who was president of our board and hired me, a very accomplished fellow, a pediatrician, more than 50 years at Harvard Medical School. But Alan would always say, I'm just a lucky duck. And that's what I say too. I'm just a lucky duck. So I've had the privilege of working in Latin America, in places like Zagreb in Eastern Europe, and Singapore and Japan, and all across Europe. And those are great privileges to have relationships in all those places and to be part of the conversation about how do we share what we know how to do about creating an equitable world, particularly for people with disabilities. And that's been a thrilling opportunity. It's not without its frustrations, but it is playing a role of knitting together those relationships and sharing all of that information about what is the state of the art today and how do we build on that instead of recreating the wheel.
So I'm sure with the advancement in technology and everything else with computers, things are much easier now than they were back then.
Oh, I think one of the great gifts of our time is that technology has the potential of being a great equalizer. It has to be thought about, it has to be deliberate, but it can be transformational. And we work from a World Health Organization definition of disability as contextual. Like, it's not residing in the person. And the negative aspects of a disability occur between a person and the environment. And that can be the digital environment, the physical environment, or a communication environment. And thus we have that power to change it. I mean, we're the ones that make the context, so we can change it. And that energizes me every day, that this is totally doable. But we have to convince people that this is about thinking differently, not about just tell me what I have to do.
So talk about some of the things that have been done or should be done in other cities other than Boston. First of all, how far is Boston as far as disabilities are concerned?
Well, I think we have an enormous amount of sophistication in terms of talent and energy and advocacy. I think one of my daily frustrations as somebody who's lived on the border of Roxbury and the South End for 42 years, I have to tell you that I am very proud that we are one of the great walking cities in the world. Certainly in America, we stand out. And we are, as Mayor Parrish would say, the 15-minute city. You can do almost anything within 15 minutes of walking, which is extraordinary. But we have a long way to go in making that work for everybody. Walking is one of our big challenges. Being able to navigate our streets and sidewalks is one of the challenges of Boston. And that people are picking away at it, but it continues to be challenging. I mean, I think as we've watched the proliferation of bike lanes, an admirable public policy, but nobody really anticipated that it would be full of people going extremely fast on motorized vehicles, so that it's begun to terrify people with low vision, people who are blind, older people, afraid to cross the street if they're crossing lanes where they don't know what's going to be coming at them without any attention to their existence. So that's the big thing that I'm really worried about today, is to make our wonderfully walkable city and a 15-minute city where every neighborhood has so much to offer to really get everything you need in a short walk. We got to make it work better for everybody.
And what can people do to contact you and do exactly that?
Well, there's two things that I would like to offer. One is our research is always based on real people in real environments, and that people with lived experience of a physical, sensory, or brain-based disability or brain-based disability. And they are our user experts. Those are people that we We invite to share their expertise in all kinds of settings, really diverse. Most of it is physical, occasionally it's remote. And on our website, humancentereddesign.org, you can sign up, register as a user expert. We welcome people to do that and are eager to introduce people to the method and to how it can make a difference in the world. And everyone is paid for their time. So that's a really important thing to say. And otherwise, we love for people to let us know that they'd like to go on the mailing list. We offer free international webcasts with people from all over the world talking about the state of the art of the design that includes everyone. Next week, we've got an amazing speaker on Tuesday at noon who is one of the leading lights in research for design, Dr. Sally Augustine, talking about, how the physical environment can create places that make us more creative. So it's a pretty varied menu, and we'll be shortly beginning to create a series of podcasts about designers with disabilities from across the world, sharing their stories.
Well, listen, I am, number one, very happy to have talked with you, and it's been a great surprise. And I just wish you all the continued success that one can have in a particular field. There's nobody better at it than you.
Oh, that's very kind of you and generous, Ken. Thanks very much. Always happy to support the Disability Commission in any way. Be well.
Now, turn it back to Commissioner Kristen McCosh.
Thank you, Ken. And it was very nice to hear from Valerie. We also go back a long way, and I know she's done incredible. So now I'd like to welcome our guest from the Boston Planning Department, Kristiana Lachiusa. Kristiana, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role in the Planning Department?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Kristen. Really nice to be here and getting to talk with you all. So as she said, my name is Kristiana, and I work at the Planning Department. And for those who aren't familiar with us, we had previously been the Boston Planning Development Agency, or the BPDA. And back over the summer in July, Mayor Wu established the new Planning Department, which is who I work for now. And the idea behind that is that we were trying to restore planning as a core function to city government and help shape the growth that serves our Boston residents. And my role specifically is, how do we ensure people across the city of Boston are able to really get involved in helping to shape the future of our city? So I'm really excited to be here with you and talk a little bit about a project we have going on and encourage some folks to get involved.
Yeah, can we dive right in and you can tell us about that project?
Let's do it. So the project specifically is, it's the way that we're trying to improve our development review process. So some people might have heard of something called Article 80 before. Essentially, it's just the way that city, when developers have a new project, they'll come to the city and they'll say, hey, I would like to propose this project. And the city wants to make sure that it is furthering our goals and that it is meeting all of our standards and expectations. And so we have a sort of very thorough process to review it. However, that process was set up in 1996, and obviously a lot about our city has changed since then. And the way the process works doesn't always sort of do everything we need it to do. It's one of the few things that everybody in the city agrees is not working in the way that they would like it to. So we are revisiting it and are trying to make it work a little bit better. So we, at the end of September, laid out an action plan that culminates the past 18 months of work, where we've spoken with lots of different community members, city staff, advocates, developers, trying to understand what's working well and what's not working well about how we shape development in the city of Boston. And we laid out a set of draft recommendations to help us to sort of say, here's what we think we're going to do differently, or here's how we think we can improve it. And one of the main ways that one of the main things we're trying to do is allow more people to more easily take part in our development review process. And so we're really hoping that people can review our action plan and let us know, are we going the right direction? Are our ideas going to work for you?
Yeah, that's super important. And I want to take this opportunity as a call to action for our disabled viewers to really get involved. My office partners with the planning department, and we have been doing this for almost 10 years, we partnered together in the Article 80 process on what we call an accessibility checklist. So all developers who are proposing a new development in Boston, whether it be a hotel or housing or commercial building, office building, they have to fill out this checklist. And it doesn't require any new accessibility compliance, but it kind of gives us a snapshot of what the accessibility is going to look like in the building. So we're really happy that this was left in as part of the process. It's a great tool for our staff to use, and also the public can use it. You can just go to the development webpage and you can scroll through the document and find the accessibility checklist. But more than that, we would love it if the public comes out to the public meetings, speaks out about accessibility, and talks about what they'd like to see in the project. So on that note, how does the public get involved? Do you still have virtual meetings? I know that you transitioned to that during COVID, but can you talk a little bit about the process of actually getting involved and how people would do that?
Yeah, so currently we have a couple ways to learn about this particular project, but then a couple of sort of new ideas that we hope to start moving forward. So in the short term, you can visit our website and read our action plan. We have two versions. We have a long 50-page for people who are really excited about getting into all of the details. And we also have an executive summary that's about 7 pages and includes all of the same information, just in a little bit less detail. So you can always check that out. We had a couple of virtual public meetings in October, and the recordings from those meetings are also posted on our website page. So you're welcome to see those and learn a little bit more about this conversation. And then we also have been attending different community events in different places where we know there's lots of people who we don't hear from enough today, and so we're trying to go to them and make sure it's as easy as possible for people to learn about and share input with us. And then in terms of how people can share feedback, there's a survey that you can find on our project page. You can send us written comments, or you can email us your comments.
And when are you taking the public input until?
It goes until November 20th.
Okay, great. So I'm encouraging all our disabled viewers to get involved in looking at this process because, like you said, the old process was in place since 1996. And so this one will probably be in place for decades as well. But, we want to have the disabled community have a role in shaping that. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about development in Boston? Like what's on the future? I know people sometimes think there's too much development, other people want more development. What are your thoughts when you think about planning for the city?
Yeah, so when I think about planning for the future of our city, we're in a city where lots of people want to live, which is really, really exciting. And so one of the things we have to deal with is how do we address how expensive it has been to live in the city? How do we make sure it's a place that works for families, that works for people who are visiting, who are working, who want to spend time here in different ways? And so we have lots of sort of different types of challenges in front of us. I think what we do know is that our city is going to grow to some amount. So how do we allow new buildings to come and make sure that those spaces work really well for everybody here and preserve the things that make Boston really special, the things that make our cities and our neighborhoods feel like the places that we love, while also allowing more people to more easily be able to live here, be able to stay here, and more people to be able to come here.
So on that note, I wanted to ask you about an initiative called Squares and Streets or Streets and Squares. I can never keep it straight.
Squares and streets, but
Okay. So what's that involve?
So Squares and Streets is one of our planning initiatives, and we're going to our main streets, to some of our main streets areas where there's lots of business, where there's people who live in those areas that are really close to transit. So it make it really easy for people to have all their daily needs met within a very short walk or roll. And we're looking at those places to say, how can we allow more people to live in those spaces, allow it to be even easier for more people? And also, what are the other things that those places might need? Do we need some more investment in our parks? Do we maybe need to add some more curb cuts or other, ways to move around more easily, more comfortably? So we're doing these planning efforts to understand and update our zoning, so the rules around what is allowed to be built and where, as well as what are other investments that our city can make to make these places even more special.
And I know that one of Mayor Wu's priorities was also revamping the Boston zoning code?
Yeah, so both of the things I talked about earlier today, the Article 80 modernization, the way we're updating our development review process, and Squares and Streets are both initiatives of our citywide zoning reform. So Article 80 is called that because it's the describing where in our zoning code it lays. And Squares and Streets, a core part of it is updating the zoning code in those main areas. So we know that our zoning code is one of the longest, most complex zoning codes in the entire country. Even though we're not the largest city, we have the longest code. And we know that it's not serving all the residents of the city of Boston as well as it could. And so this is an opportunity that we're taking on to work to update our zoning code across our city.
So I know the planning department has so many different like facets. So you work with the zoning code, you do planning. What other parts of the planning department are there?
So there's also our real estate department. So there are some city-owned parcels of land in many neighborhoods across the city, and we will work with developers and community members to help make those places into spots that are really meeting our community needs. And because the city owns those places, we can make sure that the rents in those apartments are extra affordable because the developer doesn't have to buy the land to begin with. Or we can make those places into parks or community gardens. So it's a really exciting opportunity for us to take our city-owned land and make sure that it's really meeting the public good. And then another department in our city that also works with us is our urban design team. So they are responsible for really thinking carefully and working with all of our different departments to think about how do we make sure the buildings that are designed really look and feel like Boston, that they're sort of furthering our community needs and making sure that everything is fitting in really well, even as things change, that they still continue to feel the same.
And that's so important because I always like to say that Boston is an old city, we're a vertical city, we're a winter city, and we're a densely crowded city. So when you take all those things into consideration, it can be kind of difficult to make it work, but it does work. So I think you're doing a great job in the whole planning department. And you have a new director as of this month, is that right?
Yes, our new Chief Shen has just joined us coming from MIT, and we're really excited to have him, further the work that was started with the transition from when Mayor Wu came into office and Chief Jemison was leading our department, and excited to have a sort of new voice, new leader who brings a wealth of experience around real estate, around planning, around development to help us continue to update and make sure that we're doing this work even better, even more inclusively to further our goals of resilience, affordability, and equity.
That's great, and I love to hear those goals. And I worked with Chief Shen back under May Menino when we were both employees here, and he was one of our early champions of the accessibility checklist. So make
Ooh,
sure you give him a shout out from Commissioner McCosh.
nice. That's so great to hear.
So we only have a minute or so left. Is there anything else you'd like to tell our viewers today?
I would say that, and I appreciate you sort of really advocating for more people to get involved. But, one of the things that's come up in the last couple of years is that the people who weigh in general on our planning department projects are older white homeowners who've lived in the city for more than 20 plus years. And that is an important group of people who have a perspective to share. And also it's only one perspective, and planning and our city only gets better and our projects only get better when more people are weighing in. So I really encourage folks to, take part in our processes, advocating for curb ramps, elevators, accessible bathrooms, accessible amenities. Your voice really does matter. And the more people who weigh in, the more opportunity for change and to make our city better. So excited to hopefully hear from many of you soon.
I really appreciate that comment because, like you said, that's an important perspective, but it's only one perspective. And the city's changed a lot since 1996. We know people with disabilities have more access now to get out in the community. More housing's been built so they can live in Boston. So we want all Boston residents to weigh in on the future of our city, and we hope you'll do so. You can always reach out to us at disability@boston.gov, or can you tell folks how to reach you?
Yes, so you can check out our website at bostonplans.org, or you can always email me at kristiana.lachiusa@boston.gov.
Great. Thank you so much, Kristiana. We look forward to working with you again soon.
Thanks so much, Kristen. Take care.
See you soon.